Hi guys, is the Prime Minister and his communications team actually listening to us for a change? Because he seems to have understood that you cannot out Farage, at least in this interview, and instead is associating the Reform UK leader with failure. Have a listen to how he described the boats crossing the channel.
You mentioned a fork in the road. One fork, I suppose, is the Tories and Labour, and the other fork is Reform. So would you be willing to sleep under a Tory government but not a Reform government, if you see?
I think a lot of people would say, and I would say, I vote Labour, I want a Labour government, obviously I'm a Labour Prime Minister. But if there's a Conservative government, there isn't the level of fear that there is if we go for a more right-wing proposition. And in recent weeks and months, there's been a huge amount of incoming to me by people across the country who are fearful that they don't belong in this country. They thought they were part of the Britain we were proud of, and now they feel they don't belong. That is not a good thing for our tolerant, diverse country.
You mentioned small boats. I think that's when you think that's how you'll be judged. You want to stop those boats. Siobhan Mahmood's making new steps there. You know, at the weekend, a big boat came in, 125 arrived, maybe 5 have gone back under the one in and one out deal. When will that start getting going? Will you stop the boats by the election?
Well, the returns agreement with France is important because we need to establish that if you come by boat, you will be returned to France. I accept the numbers are low. We had to prove the concept and prove that it could work. We've now done that, but now we need to ramp that up. I would gently point out to Nigel Farage and others that before we left the EU, we had a returns agreement with every country in the EU, and he told the country, make no difference if we left. Well, he was wrong about that. These are Farage boats in many senses that are coming across the channel.
Wonderful. Describe them as Farage boats. See, what Reform are trying to do is they're trying to saddle the responsibility of Brexit on Boris Johnson and the Conservative Party. They have used the term the Boriswave. Oh, the immigration numbers went up because of the Boriswave. Nothing to do with Nigel Farage, nothing to do with Brexit. They don't, of course, say the word Brexit, they say Boris instead. And Starmer is, of course, saying, look, Nigel Farage told people, if we leave the European Union, there'll be no real change. We'll still be in control of everything. And of course, you're not able to return people to European countries because you're no longer a member of the European Union. That's the reality of Brexit. So you need to associate these boats with, well, obviously with Farage and Brexit. Now, I think there's an opportunity here for Labour to expand beyond this. Say, look, businesses are struggling because of Brexit. Who sold you Brexit? Nigel Farage, who wants to be Prime Minister. The cost of living is higher because the goods that we import are now more expensive because of Brexit. Who sold you Brexit? Nigel Farage. So there's an opportunity here for Labour to, I'm not saying to scapegoat, but to point the finger of blame where it's deserved at Brexit and the people who sold it. The Conservatives under Boris Johnson, but Boris Johnson's no longer around. Who else is there? Well, Nigel Farage is there, and Nigel Farage wants to be Prime Minister. He's the guy who made your life worse. If you want to vote for him, you have every choice. But remember, he's the guy who said that the situation would get better because of leaving the European Union. He said that businesses would not be affected by leaving the European Union, or then later said, well, it would be temporary, or yes, there'd be a few bumps in the road, or whatever. So the guy is a charlatan. He begins by telling people one thing, then changing his tune later on when the reality cannot be denied. So Labour have an opportunity, and the other parties as well, to saddle a huge amount of responsibility for the disaster that the UK is in at the moment. Saddle it to Nigel Farage and Reform. Say Nigel Farage sold you a pipe dream. Nigel Farage lied to you. They need to be more aggressive. Once again, don't try and out Farage. Blame him for these problems. Associate these problems with him and explain to the public that if he becomes Prime Minister, the situation will get worse. Now, this is not a panacea. This is not going to fix all problems for Labour. They need to improve the situation for ordinary people. But it can be a two-pronged approach. On one side, improving the situation, communicating that to people, but also explaining that it's really difficult now. We have less money. It's more difficult for businesses to hire people, so they're not expanding. So we're we're getting less money in the treasury because of that. The situation is more difficult. We're more isolated. We're more exposed to threats around the world because of Brexit. And this is the responsibility of Nigel Farage. He has to take ownership of that. And what he's doing, of course, is he's deflecting it away to somebody else. That's what needs to be communicated. So it's good to hear the use of the Farage boats. I hope Labour use it more often and associate these small crossings with Brexit and with Nigel Farage. Because once again, you cannot impose policies that are more aggressive, because all Farage has to do is sit on the sidelines and say, I would do it better. But he can't run away from Brexit. He sold it even more so than Boris Johnson. So he needs to take responsibility for that. And Labour need to keep reinforcing it. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. I'll see you in the next video.